Welcome to Breaking It Down. I'm your host, Geir Balog. I'm here today with two special guests to talk about the Grayling expansion.
My name is Jim Knight from Bear Lake Township.
My name's Mike McNamara from Grayling Township.
So to start off, I guess, what's your guys' background? How did you get involved in the Grayling expansion? I feel like a lot of people have heard about this issue, but they don't really know what it's about or why it may impact them.
Well, my background is I'm a lifelong Crawford County Grayling resident. I come from a military family. My dad retired after 38 years of service to the state of Michigan and this country. As a full-time National Guardsman, he retired as a full colonel. And I too, after 27 years, retired as a full-time Michigan National Guardsman. I retired as a lieutenant colonel, and my last duty position was as the Camp Grayling commander. And I'm sorry, the Camp Grayling deputy commander. And the reason I got involved was because this whole Camp Grayling expansion didn't smell right from the very beginning. Camp Grayling is one of the largest military installations in the world, and is the largest National Guard installation in the country. Camp Grayling currently occupies 147,000 acres of state land, and the Michigan National Guard wanted to take another 163,000 acres of additional state land and to make one of the largest Army installations in the country. And I mean, that would be on par with some of the big western state, Texas, big maneuver, big desolate areas that there's no reason for the small Michigan National Guard of 7,000-ish troops to need that kind of landmass. It always had something to do with some ulterior motives.
And I think we should get, Jim, you're an elected official currently, is that correct?
Yes, I'm an elected official here. I'm going on my third term here now, here in Bear Lake Township. My ties here go back to 1974. I've been hunting and fishing in this area since then. It's 50 years now. I've got 50 years of wonderful memories that are on these public lands. I think my involvement into this, I saw that the way the land had been treated by the National Guard and some of the stories that I was hearing about concertina wire that left out in the woods that was negligently left out there. And my involvement, I didn't know Mike at the time, but I certainly was objecting to this because they only used maybe 50% of that 147,000 acres. And yet they wanted more. And this land that we're talking about, that land gave me 50 years of memories. I have generations of bird dogs that travel and walked and hunted in that land. They enjoyed the land probably more than I did. But I have outstanding memories. And I don't want that tainted and left abused by those that come here and call it in the name of training. When they leave ruts and concertina wire and ammunition cases, that land is there for the public to enjoy. So that was why I got involved with this, and as an elected official, Bear Lake Township was one of the hubs. It was the epicenter of this objection along with Crawford County. And I was solidly, my constituents were behind me all the way because they feel the same way that I do, and several of the people across northern Michigan, as we found out, as we went county to county getting 74 resolutions opposing this expansion to Camp Grayling.
So how long has the base been here? Do you know when it first started? Or?
Geez, you put me on a spot, but I think right around 1913, could be 1917. I don't remember when Rasmus Hansen, with official date, but I think it was right around 1913 when Rasmus Hansen donated to the state of Michigan 13,000-ish acres for state militia training. And it started off, I think it was called Camp Ferris originally, but then it just grew into what it is today, where the Guard has 147,000 acres to utilize. I'll add, it's kind of funny you bring that up too, is this is a good spot to tell you. Around 1984, the Guard added about 47,000 acres to a management agreement through the DNR, again, state lands, because Camp Grayling was going to become a mobilization station, which meant that units that were mobilizing, Guard and Reserve units that were mobilizing to go to some kind of conflict, whether it be Desert Storm or whatever, that gave them more maneuver space to use as a mobilization station. But the funny thing is that mission never transpired. We went through Desert Storm, Grayling never got used. Grayling lost around 1996, lost the mobilization mission. And so in my mind, I mean, that land probably should have went back in that management agreement null and void. That coupled with the fact that the track equipment in the whole Army inventory also reduced, meaning that maneuver space wasn't as needed, because now we're back to a wheeled force.
So when we're looking at the base, I guess, and you may have already mentioned that, how big is it for those that are watching? I mean, in miles, or is there a comparison for people that don't really know how big it actually is?
Yeah, it's 236 square miles.
Okay.
236 square miles.
It's pretty big.
It's huge. It equates to about 148,000 acres of land that's pretty much contiguous or within it.
In how many counties does it cover?
Well, the existing camp itself covers 4 counties, I think is what it is now. It's Crawford, Otsego, Kalkaska, and Roscommon counties, I believe.
And for those, if you could on your hand show, for those who are watching in Detroit, where is Camp Grayling on the Michigan?
So Camp Grayling is in this area right over here. You got Grayling basically in the middle, and Camp Grayling is just off to the middle right here, just to the east of Grayling, Michigan, is where it's at. It's enormous. Like Mike said, it is the largest National Guard training facility in the country. We have people that have told us, guardsmen that have told us, we're not even using half of what we have, and yet they put a proposal, west of Grayling. Thank you, Mike. But why do they need this extra property when they are not even using 50% of what they have? And that really is the question that needs to be asked. And this affects everybody that comes here, and not only just Michigan residents, somebody that comes here, that comes out of state to use the facilities and use what we have here. It's world renowned up here, what we have up here at our disposal, and it's just a great thing for Michigan residents. But when the National Guard wants to expand into these areas, and they bring the pollution and they bring the misuse of that public land, and then turn it back over to the public, what kind of quality experience is someone going to come back and use again?
Well, and I think we should break that down too. So who owns this land that the camp is on?
Mike, go ahead and take that.
The land, again, the land is all state of Michigan land. With one little exception is the Grayling Army Airfield, the McNamara Airfield. No relation to me. There's I can't remember, 160 acres. I don't remember. I'm shooting from the hip. The Grayling Army Airfield is the only federal land in the area. The rest of it all is state land that is given to the Michigan National Guard as to be a custodian, to be a caretaker, to have oversight and balance the ecosystems, to balance, the environment, along with the balance of Army training. And again, I'll be the first one to tell you that our Michigan soldiers need to be able to have room to train. And they have ample room to train. Michigan used to have 10, 12, 14,000 soldiers back in the 80s and early 90s. Now we're, again, right around 7,000-ish soldiers. So, annual training periods are 5,000. But to answer your question, Geyer, that land is all owned by the taxpayers of Michigan.
And which department oversees that, I guess? Which department is is working with the National Guard to even expand? And
the Department of Natural Resources has over the years given leases, which there's some legal issues apparently that they can't do that anymore. And now there's some management agreements and there's some cooperations between the DNR and the Michigan National Guard. Keep in mind that the DNR director and the adjutant general both are cabinet positions appointed by the governor.
Now, do we know how much the DNR is getting paid to essentially rent out this land?
Zero. The DNR gets paid nothing to allow the Guard to utilize that land. But again, I want to make sure that we're clear. I've never been against it being about the soldier. We were trying to be, some National Guard representatives were trying to shame the public into allowing for this expansion. Statements like, if you're not with us, you're against the soldier. Or if you don't allow this to go through, you're going to have blood on your hands. And I'm paraphrasing. Those were documented at public meetings that we have the videos on. But the whole point of the story is we knew something stunk from day one. And now we're a couple of years later, and now we're finding out how deep this really goes.
Well, and I should ask too, when did this expansion start, and when did you guys kind of see that something was going on here?
It started
in 2021.
June.
Actually, I was on a wood project at my house, and one of my friends sent me a text and said, "You need to check your email." And I get DNR emails, and it stated in there about this expansion, and it was on June the 8th of 21 when I found out about it, and even being an elected official at the time. And none of them of my constituents or my fellow board members knew anything about this expansion. So they were trying to get this through with the least amount of objection from anyone. Why did they need this property? I think it was egotistical, and I think it was there for purposes for defense contractors to come out and try things on public land right next to us in our backyards. This is why there was objection to this at my level. And as it turned out, it was across 7 or 8 different counties where this was going to be affected.
So how much, I guess, so they're saying they're using Camp Grayling for training, and what's they're asking, I guess? How much land are they asking for, and what's their narrative as far as what they're saying it's used for? Why do they need it?
One of the things that, they had 148,000 acres, and they're not using 50% of it. One of the things that Colonel Myers has stated is they need it for space. And he never elaborated what that meant. We need distance. We need space. So one of the defense contractors, what they want to use is they want to use this electromagnetic warfare. Very effective weapon. Just an example, and I'm not a military guy, but recently you saw the attack on Israel, and they were disrupting the electric guidance systems on those incoming missiles, and it dropped them right out of the sky. Very effective weapon. But what else does electromagnetic warfare do, and used possibly in another way where maybe you're trying to bring down an aircraft where you could disable the electronics of an aircraft? Or what does it do to cross the distance when point A is to disrupt communications to point B, and what happens within that 5-mile or 1-mile stretch, and what is exactly in the path of that? Is it certainly the wildlife has nowhere to go. Suppose there's somebody out there that's riding ATVs or horseback riding. So they said they have a geofencing where they could stop that signal. So if this electronic signal doesn't hurt anything, why would you need geofencing to stop it? And Colonel Myers just didn't have an answer for that. So indeed, this thing is a dangerous weapon. I can cite you, the Havana syndrome that happened in Cuba to some State Department people. They were subject to a microwave signal. It's electronic warfare. It's the same thing. Very effective weapon. Not saying that we don't need that for the defense of this country. We just don't want it used next to us.
And I guess that's a question I think a lot of people are going to have is Michigan's a ton of woods. Why are we using this area for testing, I guess, new weapons? Why do we need to use Northeast Michigan for that? Or Northern Michigan, I should say.
Well, that's a good question. I think it's because there are people that are leaders of the Michigan National Guard that came from the federal government's big think tank, where a lot of weapon systems and a lot of military equipment materials are developed. And that's Dr. Paul Rogers, Major General Paul Rogers. He has ties to all those organizations and all those defense contractors. And I think that's where his niche is at. I think that's where he thinks he could make the most buck for the state of Michigan and to support the governor.
But we're not making anything.
No, well, no. The Guard isn't making it, but it sure puts a feather in a cap of a few politicians who are behind. Election year, we could always talk about bringing business to Michigan.
But there's also the practical side of the state, you would think, wanting to guard their land a little bit, that, if they're not getting anything for it from the state side of things, you'd wonder.
I'd like to.
Even if they're getting a couple $1 million a year, it's not worth it.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.